We're finally getting to the point in the Big Ten East where we're seeing some impactful games, games that will shape the Big Ten championship race. And it's unfortunate that one of Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State will not play for a conference championship, but we finally get to see which one of those teams is that team and which of the other two that are in contention. I think that you're looking at a Michigan team that has beat who's on their schedule, and there have been some criticisms about not playing tough teams. And obviously, you can only play what's on your schedule. Now we get a finally get a chance to see what this team can do. And when you look at the team they're facing in Michigan State, obviously not having the season they want, but this is still going to be a tough game, a rivalry game that will challenge Michigan. How good Michigan is going to be determined really by how they perform against the Spartans. Now, for Michigan, there's plenty of talent, obviously, to be utilized. And like I said, they are just destroying everyone on their schedule. They are not pulling any punches. And lately, they've really, honestly, they've been turning it up a notch. Put up 52 points against both Indiana and Minnesota, two teams that are obviously not great, but you still put up 52 points. You put up 45 against Nebraska. This is a team that is showing they mean business. They are not taking this lightly anymore, and they are ramping up for what's going to be a tougher second half of the season. You still have to face both Ohio State and Penn State. You still have two teams that are very much in contention for the Big Ten championship, and those are the teams you have to get through to retain your crown. Michigan obviously is the reigning defending champs, and you have to find a way to keep that title. Now, I will say a guy like JJ McCarthy plays a huge role. I think JJ is playing really well when he is in, but I think that there are also the criticism of not playing anyone still kind of holds true. It's just not that you don't think they're a good player. It's just I want to see what happens against a team that can actually challenge JJ McCarthy and a team that can challenge his passing attack. I don't know if that's Michigan State, but I think a rivalry game is a good start to show us what JJ McCarthy can actually do, because a lot of quarterbacks can do what McCarthy has done so far to bad competition. And that's the biggest key for me is yes, JJ has looked really good, but he also really hasn't been challenged. What's going to happen when you get hit in the mouth once? What's going to happen when you throw a pick in a tight game? If it is a tight game, that is the thing that I want to see the most is what does JJ McCarthy do? Because really great players want to be challenged. And I know that JJ McCarthy is not satisfied with how he's played and what he's going to do in the future. Not necessarily that he thinks he's played poorly. It's just that he knows there's another level to reach. And for Michigan, Michigan's looking long term. This is not a team that's satisfied with beating bad competition. They want to win a national championship, and they understand that they have another level to reach. So even if they're playing bad competition, they want to elevate their game. And when they finally do play good competition, they want to make sure that these games are as far spread away as possible. They want to dominate in every facet of the game. And so far, they've done a good job of that. It's just that we haven't seen them play anybody. So that argument still holds true. Michigan State's in kind of a tough place. You have a new quarterback coming in to start for them after what we saw 2 weeks ago. And I think that there's been plenty of concerns surrounding this program for many reasons. And it's tough because when you are on a 4 game losing streak, you may have lost certain players in the locker room. You may have to worry about what is the future going to look like. Obviously, the off the field issues with Mel Tucker are still probably the most prominent thing about this program, but this is a rivalry game, and you know that Michigan State and its players will be ready at least mentally, to play in this game. Whether or not they can keep things close remains the question. But I think when you look at this roster, there's still a handful of players that are really fun to watch. And if you can get the rest of that group to step up in a way, then you're going to make things interesting. I think the addition of Nate Carter was one of the best additions in college football, but it just flies under the radar because Michigan State has struggled so much. I think the former UConn running back has done a good job of running the ball for the Spartans, but it's just they haven't won many football games. So it's kind of hard to judge his impact on a team that is not doing very well. Cal Haladay is one of the most underrated linebackers in college football. I think he's done a great job of leading this defense. And I think the biggest question for me is what are we going to see from him to get his teammates up to speed? Because we know what he's capable of doing. It's just a matter of can he get everyone else around him to step up too. Individual matchups will be the determining factor of this game. I think that if you see Michigan State hang around in certain matchups, if they're able to take advantage of certain areas, then I think they'll be in good hands. One of them that I didn't list here, but it's I listed at the bottom with Josiah Stewart versus Brandon Baldwin. I think the offensive line for Michigan is going to do what it needs to do, obviously. I think that Michigan State can make things closer if they're able to win at the line of scrimmage. Michigan's offensive line is one of the best in college football, if not the best. They are absolutely mauling people, and Michigan State has some talent to be able to compete with that, but I don't know if they necessarily have what it takes to make it a full game. That is probably the biggest question for me on what they can do. And then certain other matchups, what can a guy like Roman Wilson do? Can Cornelius Johnson have a big game? And then on the other side of the ball, this defense has the ability to play shutdown defense. So what are they gonna do to combat that if you're Michigan State? How do you keep guys like Chris Jenkins out of the backfield? How do you get past guys like Will Johnson? How do you make Junior Colson confused? I think that's a big question. And so far, we have yet to see it from Michigan State, but that's going to be how you keep this game close. You give different looks. You win matchups you haven't won before, or that you're just a few steps away from winning. I think that Michigan State still has the ability to hit Michigan and show that they have some fight, but I don't necessarily know how it's going to turn out in the long run. Because when you look at some of these matchups, it sometimes it comes down to the name recognition, but ultimately in the end, it's just that Michigan appears to have more talents. So when you're looking at keys to the game, for Michigan, it's essentially just business as usual. Continue dominating, continue to swarm on defense. JJ has to make big plays with his arm and be efficient throwing the ball. Big plays will definitely get Michigan State out of this game in a hurry if you're able to put up a quick 14, 21 points to start the game. And if you're Michigan State, you have to find a way to stay in it. Stopping the run could be a big key. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards are one of the best tandems in college football once again, and stopping them gives you a little bit of help when it comes to keeping this game close. Getting the quarterback settled, whether whoever it is, has to be able to make plays, plain and simple. If you don't have a passing game, you can just move on to the next week. Michigan's going to run away with this one if you can't find a passing attack. So you have to get the quarterback settled. You obviously it's not all on the quarterback and the wide receivers. The offensive line has to do their part, and the defensive line. I think that they are doing a great job of being disruptive uh, for Michigan. But if Michigan State can keep that pass rush away from their quarterback, give him extra time to throw, then you're in good hands. Limiting disruptive plays is really where that comes in. If you're giving your quarterback time to throw and he's not seeing a Michigan defender in his face every other snap, then I think that you're in good hands, at least for the first half. Now, obviously, long term, there are questions, but we will see what happens to these guys, like I said, through 4 quarters. And I think when you're picking this game, you look at the quarterback position, and they're a big factor in both for both sides. Caden Hauser is coming in, and he is entering a tough situation. It's not easy to walk into what Michigan State has going on so far, but you have to find a way to do it. And it's a rivalry game. So it's a big spotlight to be in. If he's able to show that he can be even decent, which I mean, last week, 133 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Taking care of the football obviously will be huge, but this is a much different game than playing a team like Rutgers. JJ McCarthy, we talked about him. His ability to elevate Michigan in big games will be the biggest question, because when you look at last year, JJ McCarthy showed a lot of the same things that he showed this year. We saw a lot of exciting things. It just came down to the big games. And in the big games, he didn't really play how you needed him to. And not saying that Michigan State is a huge game, but it's a rivalry game where you need to see him play really well. So if he has a big game, it maybe shows us that he's turned the page and Michigan can reach another level. Because in order for Michigan to win a national championship, JJ McCarthy has to play at a national championship level. I think that opens things up tremendously for this offense, which long term is just going to help. But for winning a national championship, that's what has to happen. You have all the other pieces that you need. It's just that you need a passing attack to show up and be what you need it to be. Now, in this game, it's not really going to make a huge difference if JJ is Superman or not, and not necessarily that Michigan needs him to be, but if he doesn't step up, they can still win this game. Michigan State is in a lot of trouble, and they are obviously struggling to figure out what's going on for their future. So for now, even though it's a rivalry game, I think Michigan still takes care of business.